You're listening to the True Crime Nation podcast with Todd and Brian. If you're enjoying the show, email us at truecrimenation@outlook.com. Let's start the show.
Tonight we're going to be talking about Dennis Martin.
Yep.
He became missing in June of 1969.
Right.
In the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Right. 6 years old.
6 years old, almost 7. And the weird thing about it is they never solved the case. They never found him.
Right. That's not the only weird thing about it.
No, it's not the only weird thing about it.
This was the largest search for anybody in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park ever or since.
Yeah. And involved special forces.
Yeah.
So
they brought a 6-year-old to find a missing 6-year-old kid. They brought in the Green Berets.
Right. I'll just read a little paragraph here, this to give some insight. The disappearance of Dennis Martin. Dennis Martin was a 6-year-old resident of Knoxville and was visiting the Great Smoky Mountains National Park with his father, grandfather, older brother on Father's Day weekend in 1969. The camping trip was a family tradition for the Martins. The family hiked from Cades Cove to Russell Field and camped overnight. The next day, they hiked to Spence Field near the Appalachian Trail, where they planned to spend the night. So the Appalachian Trail, Brian, I think that thing runs isn't that a vast trail that runs the whole length of the Appalachian mountain range?
Yeah, it runs across the top of the Appalachian Mountains, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Right along the spine of them.
Heading out to the East Coast, Maine specifically, I think we were talking about that. And there's a spot where I can hit, and I think it's New Hampshire, actually, the Appalachian Trail, and I'm gonna go check that out.
You can go check that out.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be fun.
But it says, Martin disappeared on June 14th while planning on surprising the adults with his brother, the other children from a separate family the Martins were camping with. So basically, him and his brothers were going to go take off in one part of the woods and sneak around behind and scare the parents.
Right, and try and jump out and scare them.
Mm-hmm. And the story goes is that for some reason they didn't want, I read that they didn't want Dennis going with them because he had a red shirt on and he would give him away. So they told him to go a different way or go around the other way by himself to deter maybe the parents or whatever. After not seeing him for 5 minutes when all the other kids had returned, the father became concerned, began searching for him. The father ran down the trail for nearly 2 miles until he was sure he could not have gotten any further. After several hours, they sought help from the National Park Service Rangers. So at this point, Dennis is not there.
And of course, they didn't have cell phones or anything at that time. It was 1969. So his grandfather had to hike out and go to the nearest ranger station.
Yeah.
Which was a couple miles.
Yeah.
So he had to hike out to get help.
And I'm sure it was later in the evening or nighttime at that point.
Yeah.
It says the area where Martin disappeared is marked by steep slopes and ravines. Wild animals such as copperhead snakes, bears, feral hogs, and bobcats inhabit the area. A downpour broke out shortly after Martin's disappearance, dropping 3 inches of rain in a matter of hours, which washed out the trails and caused streams to flood. Temperature of the night of June 14th dropped to nearly 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wet and cold.
Yeah. Could a bear have grabbed him? Yes. Very possible.
Yeah, but I think people would have heard a bear.
I think they would have found it. They would have found some remains. They would have found this thing.
Right.
If we're not going to bring anything else into the subject, I would say that most likely it probably was a bear that could have grabbed this kid, drug him off in a cave somewhere, never to be found. But that's not what I think happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that happened because I think they would have found traces of that.
Yeah. Could have been some weird loner guy that's just out in the woods walking around, hiding from people or whatever.
It talks a little bit about that. Reading on here, it says search efforts, including a separate search by the National Guard and Special Forces, found no trace. Heavy rains during the first day's search hampered efforts. I would think that Special Forces would have found a bear.
Now, yeah, and I can understand the National Guard helping because that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, they help with disasters and emergencies and stuff.
Yeah,
but the Green Berets, the Special Forces of the Army, for God's sake, really?
I mean, they could have been in the area just doing some training and thought, well, hell, we'll jump in and out this.
Well,
maybe that was what, maybe.
That could too, but I don't know.
So it says 1,400 people were involved in the search effort. Footprints were found in the area, but dismissed as being Martin's and determined by park officials to have been left by a Boy Scout participating in the search.
Right.
The child-sized footprints led to a stream where they disappeared. The tracks indicated that one foot was barefoot, while the other was an Oxford type of shoe Martin was wearing, or a tennis shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Retired park ranger and author Dwight McCarter believes that they were prints belonging to Martin, as the tracks were not part of a group, and none of the Boy Scouts were searching while barefoot. Okay, so the kid had, he was still walking somewhere and lost a shoe. Why would he? Well, I mean, I don't know. 6 years old, you can lose a shoe, I guess, pretty easily.
Unless he was being pulled along.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
By who?
Or what?
It says a shoe and sock were also found. By June 22nd, 56 square miles of ground had been covered. More than 1,000 searchers continued to look. Okay, so 56 square miles. That's a lot of area. I mean,
it's a lot of area.
Unless an animal is just coming into that area to hunt or whatever, they're not going to.
A bear's not going to drag it 56 miles.
They're not going to travel that far away. Period.
No.
Not in that short of time, right? So,
and a bear is also not going to cover somebody's mouth. How come the kid didn't scream? If a bear took him, he would have been screaming.
Yeah, no noise was made or no noise was heard, apparently. So
no, that's what they said.
It says the search was officially closed down on September 14th, 1969. As of 2021, it is still the largest search in the history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It says Dennis's father. Yeah,
they didn't find him.
No, they didn't. They're not going.
Not
to.
a trace.
They're not going to find him, unfortunately. Dennis's father offered a $5,000 reward back then, equivalent to $35,000 now, for information. Psychics offered clues. It says a ginseng hunter claimed to have discovered and scattered the skeletal remains of a small child in Big Hollow, Tremont. He kept the find to himself until 1985 because of fear that he would be prosecuted for the illegal ginseng. A sequential search turned up nothing. So there's some theories about this they list, and I just pulled this information off, the internet like we do.
Right.
And you found some stuff that we can get into as well. That's a little bit more detail about this. But it says there's some 3 main theories that exist about what happened to Dennis Martin. And it says the first is that it became lost in Paris from exposure or some other cause, likely during the first night. This is the most probable theory according to park officials. But I don't believe that one so bit, because they would have found the body. Would they not?
Yeah.
They would have found the body, right?
Yeah, they would have.
So
they would have found blood. If it would have bear, there would have been a blood trail, something.
They're saying that he became lost and died from exposure. That's the most probable theory. Well, then where was he at?
Yeah, where's the body?
He's not going to travel 56 miles.
Not a 6-year-old kid.
The second theory is he was attacked by a hungry bear, or less likely a feral pig, and carried off.
No blood.
Again, I think they would have found something.
Blood.
The third is that he was abducted and taken out of the park by something or someone. His father was proponent of the third theory. On the afternoon that Martin disappeared, tourist Harold Key and his family heard an enormous, sickening scream, and shortly thereafter witnessed an unkempt, rough-looking man running up the trail near where the scream had come from. Mm-hmm. Key thought the man who got into a white car may have been a moonshiner. Park rangers and the Federal Bureau of Investigations concluded that there was insufficient evidence to link the sighting to Martin's disappearance, particularly given that the Key sighting was approximately 5 miles away from where Martin disappeared. The exact time of the sighting being unknown and the lack of trails connecting to the two sites. What do you think, Brian?
I did find another podcast, I guess it was, I was listening to. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but he was talking about this case, and he was talking about around those areas in the Appalachian Mountains are reported wild men. And that were people from way back that just ran into the, after the Civil War or during the Civil War or whatever, didn't want to fight, took off into the Appalachian Mountains, just disappeared, and eventually became feral. The story goes.
I mean, I believe, yeah.
And some of them took their families with them. Some of them didn't. But how are these people procreating if they didn't take their families with them? How are they? Mm-hmm. How are these wild men? I'm sure they're not 200 years old.
I'm not against the theory that there's that there's human beings out there living in remote areas, never seeing civilization. I'm sure that's probably going on. But looking at this whole situation, here's my point. I can see if you're at like Disney World or a park like that, a child getting taken, abducted for whatever reason, ungodly known way, why people would steal a child for money, what have you. I'm not going to go into that. It just appalls me.
That's another day.
But to be out in the middle of nowhere,
right? In the middle of one of the biggest wilderness parks.
If you're going to try to abduct a kid, why would you try to do it because how are you going to get out of there? They were at a point, they were miles from their vehicles or whatever.
Yeah, if you check the map, they were in pretty deep.
Why would you make it so hard on yourself to kidnap a kid way out in the middle where you've got to get yourself back to a vehicle or somewhere, unless that's where you live? Now, that being said,
right.
I mean, what are the chances of some, whatever you want to call them, being out there in the mountains?
Pretty good.
I mean, it's possible, Deliverance. You saw that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again,
those
Brian,
wild men are big feet. Those are inbreds.
Again, Brian, they would have found those. There's people's house or their cabin or whatever, or their tent.
Yeah. Right.
In that search. Yeah. It's not feasible. It doesn't make sense for people to do that. And could it have been a mountain lion? It's possible.
There would have been blood.
But you're right. There would have been blood. You would think there was
any kind of wild animal. There would have been a blood trail. The spots.
The thing that got me was the footprints. One shoe, not one shoe, and how it led to the stream, and then it was disappeared.
And stopped at a stream, and yep.
So he must have crossed the stream somehow. So that tells me right there it wasn't initially an animal that took him, but something led him away from his campground. Again, had he got lost and wandered away, they would have found him eventually. He wouldn't have got very far. They would have found this kid in 56 square miles.
Yep. I think so too. But there is, the drifter guy that's living out in the woods somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Again, though, he couldn't have gotten away from the search party.
The feral human or wild man.
I wonder in that search, did anybody even go in any kind of cave system looking for this kid? You would think they would if they would have come across it, right?
I would hope.
But, maybe these things just seem to be, as deep as they are, but there's more to them what people realize. I don't know.
Yeah.
Article I read where, the scream is the one thing, the god-awful scream that the guys heard.
Right.
It wasn't human, according to these people. Mountain lions can make screams like that. And again, but like you said, there would have been blood. There wouldn't have been footprints. Who would have been walking around. Mm-hmm. They would have found remains, evidence somehow.
Something. Yeah, they would have found parts, pieces, clothes, something.
So what I'm saying is any cave systems within that 56 square mile area should be investigated thoroughly.
Oh yeah.
Not just looking for Dennis Martin, but for a lot of things probably that people will find that they'd be shocked to see.
Might be surprised, yeah. You might be surprised.
Get your Green Berets, get your Navy SEALs, get your top, military out there and you want to send them on some training missions, hey, go dig through these caves.
Perfect training for going into Afghanistan and getting Al Qaeda.
Absolutely. I don't know how big these cave systems are, if they're even.
I don't think anybody knows.
Maybe they're not accessible, or maybe we don't know how to assess them. Certain ones.
I don't think anybody knows how vast those cave systems can be.
So,
especially if they're connected to mines.
I think if anybody wants to know anything about what happened to Dennis Martin, that's where they need to start looking.
Absolutely. 100%. Any caves around that 56-mile area
if it was a bear or a mountain lion, then maybe it would have dragged him down there.
Even they would have gone in a cave. Mm-hmm.
So, again, you said there had been blood.
Yeah. Wild animals tend to rip and tear when they catch their food.
So there's, he's not the only one though. We're going to get into more for sure on this stuff.
Oh yeah, man, we got a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them out west. There's a bunch of them down south. There's a lot of them in that park, in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
A lot of these are hunters too, which really interests me. I'm just trying to go through some of the other notes here that on that file that you sent to see if something stood out. Talking about psychics saying things and all this weird stuff and whatnot, and the FBI followed up on everything, got involved. So again, I go back to the theory of I can see a kid being kidnapped in a busy city, because kidnapper can grab the kid, throw him in the back of his car, drive out of the city, and drive to the other side of the country if he wants to.
Hell, even out of their backyards or front yards, it's happened.
But you're going to kidnap a kid in the middle of
a national
Appalachian wilderness where you've got to hike him out. How far did it say they were hiked in? Like 8 miles or something like that? I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember either, but it was
a journey.
Not a short hike. It was a trip.
Yeah. I can't seem to see.
You can even look up the map and.
Yeah, for people who want to check this out, just go on Google and the disappearance
of the map
of Dennis Martin.
It'll show you exactly how far they were.
Yeah. The other one was I can't remember the other. Southern Mysteries talks about it too, and there's a lengthy thing on there. But if you just Google Dennis Martin, it'll come up. Yeah, I mean, why didn't he make any noise?
Yeah, exactly. I think a 6-year-old kid would scream.
If a kid's gonna be grabbed by a bear, unless he was so frightened he just froze, but then eventually you're gonna scream. Something would have had to cover his mouth to keep him from screaming. And I said this could not have been, in my opinion, this wasn't a human because nobody's gonna try to do that and get out of there, not that quick.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's
unless there was a car parked somewhere close by and they could drive out, but I don't think there was accessible.
Where though?
Yeah, I don't think where they were at was accessible.
At least not to get out of the area that fast. No.
So I don't know. It's got to be devastating to the family.
Oh, no doubt. I can't even imagine that pain, and to this day not knowing.
Mm-hmm. But again, I'm just curious what the hell's in those caves.
I am too, and that's like you said, that's where people need to start. That's where they need to start looking if they want to continue this hunt.
Well, one of the things that keyed us off too, you and I talked about this backstage, so to speak, was the whole special forces coming in.
That's. And maybe they were there for training at somewhere close. It's possible. I doubt it, but it's possible.
And maybe I'm living in different times. We're living in different times. A missing kid comes up now. They don't send special forces.
No, that's a national park thing.
So it made me wonder. Also talked about they were armed as well. They sent these guys in armed. Okay, what's going on?
There are bears and lions, but
yeah.
These guys were heavily armed. They didn't even show. I even have a picture.
And Brian, we're not talking about. There's a lot of them too.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about grizzly bears. If there's black bears, and they're more scared of you.
Black bears, maybe brown bears. Nothing. I mean, small brown bears, not grizzlies.
I think people need to be aware of this stuff. And that's another reason why we're talking about this stuff.
I absolutely do.
You got anything else to say about Dennis or any other points that you saw in there that we might have missed, Brian? We didn't go too deep in the details, but
no, I don't really want to.
I like talking about us theorizing about what we think about it, but
right.
Yeah.
Right. Now people are more than welcome to email us or leave some comments on our, let us know.
It's like, his father thought it was someone or something.
But hopefully.
It'd be interesting to talk to maybe his brother or something if he was still alive.
It would be nice to talk to somebody who was involved in that. I mean,
I wonder if they would speak about it or not.
It's a good question. That's been over 40 years.
We weren't even born yet when this happened, dude. You know that?
No. Yeah. No, we weren't.
Not quite.
No.
But
anyway. A year away from that. Over a year away.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, if you like this episode, if you have some input, some insight, or some questions, or
let us know. If
comments.
You want to hear some more missing stories, if you have any missing stories, let us know.
Yep.
We'll talk about them. Who knows? Maybe somebody will hear this and reopen it and go look.
Hit us up with the email, truecrimenation@outlook.com, and let us know.
You got
and we'll get it on here and we'll talk about it.
You got it. And remember, everyone,
monsters are real.